Sometimes, the best stories in golf aren't found on tour. You'll find them at the back of the range. And now, your host, Ben Adelberg.
Welcome to the Back of the Range Golf Podcast. I'm your host, Ben Adelberg. We're at even par. This is episode 72. Hard to believe that we are already in the month of May. This year is absolutely flying along, but thankfully, the summer is almost here. That means more daylight and more golf for me. Don't worry, you're still going to get a weekly episode each and every week, and we have some amazing interviews lined up all summer long. I want to start giving away more swag. We have hats, we have alignment sticks, we have towels. I got to get this stuff out of here because I have new stuff coming in. So keep following on Instagram at the Back of the Range Podcast. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter. You know, the easiest way for me to get this stuff out of here and send it to you is for you to leave a review in Apple Podcast. When you do that, screenshot it, send me an email, or post it online, tag us, and I will get some stuff out of here and send it to you. Just my way of saying thank you for following and listening to the Back of the Range. Before we get started this week, I need to send out some congratulations to some of our previous guests and friends of the podcast. It is always great to see the mojo working its magic. Colin Morikawa, senior at Cal, won the individual Pac-12 Conference Championship recently. Our friends over at Stanford picked up the team title. Additionally, the juggernaut, that is the Oklahoma State University men's golf team, they won a Big 12 Conference Championship, so congrats to Coach Bratton and Hovland and Wolf and Eckroat and all the guys down there. Finally, our friends in the Big 10 Conference. Coach Mike Small from Illinois picked up Coach of the Year, as well as his team winning another conference championship at Philly Cricket. So congrats to all of them. You know, NCAA regionals are right around the corner, as well as the national championship, so definitely stay tuned for that. For those of you that follow mid-amateur golf, you'll know that this past weekend in South Florida, the Coleman Invitational was held at the prestigious Seminole Golf Club. This is definitely one of those mid-am majors held every year. Many of our previous guests were there to participate. Chip Lutz, Gene Elliott, McCoy, Stuart Hagestad, Matt Parziale, just to name a few, they were all there this past weekend. Our guest this week won the event for the first time in 2017. He got his name listed on the wall with the other champions, most notably his father, Bill, who was able to win a couple senior division titles in the 90s. Well, Scott Harvey now has 2 Coleman titles to his name. He is the 2019 Coleman Invitational Champion, and he joins us this week at the Back of the Range. As you'll hear in this episode, Scott has been able to play and win in many of the top amateur events in the country. He's also played internationally. He's won the South American Amateur. He is the 2014 U.S. Mid-Amateur Champion, and he's represented the United States at the Walker Cup in 2015. The other thing that you'll learn in this episode is that Scott is a family man from Greensboro, North Carolina. He is just as comfortable cracking open some beers and talking trash on the golf course as he is making a 12-footer on the greens of Augusta National. So let's get started. Scott, welcome to the Back of the Range. How are you, sir?
Yeah, doing good, man. Thanks a lot. Appreciate you having me on.
Absolutely. Well, you know, the thing I love about having these great elite amateurs and great professionals on the podcast is, you know, they make sure they are all prepped and ready to record this episode where they cannot be distracted by anything. A lot of people just kind of hole up in their home office or they get into a nice cozy corner of their country club. Scott, where are you calling from today?
I'm in a Cracker Barrel parking lot in Greensboro, North Carolina.
Yes. Man,
I got to get Mama's pancakes, man.
Oh. All right. Before we get into some serious stuff about you playing the Masters and playing the Walker Cup, what is your go-to order at Cracker Barrel? And they are not a sponsor yet, just so you know. So do your best here.
No, that's fine. It's Mama's pancakes. You got to get Mama's pancakes and about 3 gallons of syrup and a sweet tea, and then that's my sugar high for about a month.
Dear God, dude, you're gonna just take a nap right in the booth. Oh my God,
I love it.
That's awesome. Well, you had a hell of a weekend. I know you just got back from the Coleman. I know you've won there in the past. This is your, I think, second win in 3 years. You had your first one in 2017. You know, for most people that don't know some of the higher level amateur events in the country, you know, there's the Thomas that you've won. You've medalist at the Crump Cup. but this one really does hold a little bit of a special place in your heart. I know that your father was a 2-time senior division champion there. I want to ask about how you got started in the game and a lot about your father's legendary career. But the one thing that this kind of ties into is, how do you focus on the task at hand of tournament golf and not allow your mind to get cluttered with the results or the rewards or things that could happen if you win?
That's a really good question. So I would say experience is key, because what I did was I had a lot of close calls at a lot of different tournaments, and I let those things overtake me. The emotions and the thoughts about results and this and that and the other, and when that happens, you get in your own way.
Yeah.
And so what I learned was, okay, I've done it that way, and started thinking about the outcome, and that obviously didn't work, a bunch of train wrecks. So let's try it the other way and just play the game and see what happens. And that, you just learn what to do in the situation. You learn how to think, how to play, and you also learn what not to do, and just experience, being there. It just means a lot, and it's easy to draw on.
So you're just thinking a lot about process and trying to pick out as many details as possible about the upcoming shot, whether it's lie, wind, distance, things like that. So you're just kind of focusing on that, just to kind of basically just shut out all the other crap, so to speak, out of your head.
Exactly. So just to give you an example.
Yeah, please do.
Yeah. So 2017, at the Coleman and down at Seminole, that was the one tournament that I'd wanted the most. I mean, I really wanted that one bad, because it was this really special place to my father. Me and him were so close. And that locker room, his name being up there, and just, I wanted mine up there with him so bad. And I'd already learned by this point 2 years ago, I'd already learned what not to do, like as far as letting the emotions and thinking about the outcomes and all that stuff. I've already learned all that, but it was really hard not to let that come into my mind on the last hole. And I'm standing in the middle of the fairway thinking to myself, I've got a 4-shot lead. It's on the 18th hole. I'm in the middle of the fairway, and I've finally done it. But the reality was, it's not over. And anybody who's ever played there, especially the last 2 holes, anything can happen. And sure enough, I made a triple bogey, because I let my emotions come over me. I mean, I was in tears, just thinking about the outcome before it even happened, and got ahead of myself, and almost cost myself the championship because of it.
Yeah, I remember reading about that triple bogey, and I mean, is that just the sickest feeling I think you've probably had on a golf course? It's got to be up there.
It was, it was okay, because I had 4 shots to a 4-shot lead, and I had 3 shots to give, and I used all three of them.
That's a tie.
But yeah. it was like a bittersweet thing. But for me, this one was like a validation almost. Sure. It was like I held strong, and there was no give up, and played really just solid. So it was a little bit of a validation this week.
Absolutely. Well, that's great. Congrats on that. You mentioned your father, historic career in the Carolinas. I think he played tournament golf for about 40 years, and I mean, what is it, 18 or 18 U.S. Amateur Championships he played, and he's in multiple Halls of Fame. And the thing that I love when I get, elite amateurs on the podcast is asking how they got into the game. And there's the gamut of stories, and, growing up at a country club, or not playing, playing baseball as a kid and then finding golf. But your dad ran a standalone driving range in Sedgefield. So,
Yep.
I mean, that's standalone driving ranges are kind of becoming few and far between. In fact, they built a highway through that, and so it doesn't exist anymore. But tell me about your start in the game, just growing up at a standalone driving range, just hanging at your dad's range.
Yeah, it was pretty cool, pretty unique upbringing, in the sense of my father, like you said, was just so powerful in the game of golf, and especially in the Carolinas, but really everywhere. And I was always around the game, and everywhere I went as a kid, it was a big deal. People would come up to him, and you could just tell he was just this, I didn't quite understand it when I was a little kid, right? It was like, but you just knew, you just felt the importance of his presence, and and I got to witness a lot of things, and I got old enough to carry that big, huge bag that he had, and I caddied for him a little bit, and then the driving range was about 500 or 600 yards from my house, so I rode my bike back and forth to that thing.
Man.
Daily, and hung out there. Of course, he made me pick up balls by hand every single night, but that's a whole nother story. But my whole life, my whole childhood was sitting around that driving range, hitting balls, hanging out with my dad and kind of his old cronies, and listening to them tell stories after stories. And I mean, that it was sort of a tin cup range, if you will, and just a really cool environment. And I played golf with those older guys on the weekends, and just I wouldn't trade it for anything in the world, honestly.
What was looking back, obviously it's character building, and I'm sure you do similar things with your son now, but I mean, what's the worst job you had at the driving range? I mean, I'm sure you did everything, but what's the one that was like, oh, Dad, come on, man, I got to do that?
Yeah, well, it was really just the Friday nights when you want to hurry up and go to the high school football game or go out with your buddies or just whatever it is.
Yeah.
And Dad was like, he was adamant, like you get your ass out here and you're picking up balls. We had a 5-gallon bucket in one hand and like a half a broomstick with a bean can screwed into it on the end of it. We literally picked up one by one, scooping them up into a bucket every night. And it was, like you said, character building, and taught me a lot about responsibility. And when you say that, what's the one thing that you don't like doing? I didn't like doing it because I had something else to do or something else I wanted to do, but I wouldn't trade it for anything. I mean, that was just more bonding time with my dad.
We probably can't get into every character you ran across in your childhood at that driving range because there are pancakes waiting for you. But can you even share just like one character that stood out? Like you said, a tin cup range, you got the guy that's betting on which crow's going to fly off the fence next and things like that. But like, can you just think back to like just one person that was always at the range that you're like, man, I'm never going to forget this guy for as long as I live?
Yeah, like you said, there's probably several, and I could talk for 3 weeks about it. But there was one guy who stood out among the rest. And his name was Tom, and God bless his heart. You'd walk in and he'd be sitting there and you'd say, "Hey, Tom, how you doing?" He said, "Well, how the hell am I supposed to be doing?" I mean, that's kind of his response. And then he would, somebody'd be out there hitting balls that he knew, and he'd go, he'd go grab a BB gun.
Oh, this is getting good.
And the guy started taking his club back, and he would shoot the ball.
Wait a minute.
Yeah.
So he's hitting balls. And he'd shoot the ball with a BB gun.
He'd shoot the ball with a BB gun, and the ball would move, and he'd miss the ball.
Oh my God! All right, now I understand. I think I have a glimpse now, and everyone else says what kind of a range you grew up at. So not.
It was fantastic.
Not exactly pyramids of pearly white Pro V1s. And so
no.
Oh wow.
No, we had the balls that you could hit cuts and draws in the same shot. Some balls are good, but some balls might be fairly slick.
The worst job I ever had was at a golf ball company that reclaimed old golf balls out of ponds, and they would scrub them, repaint them white, and I actually ran a machine that put the red stripes on golf balls.
Yes, I've done that.
You've done that?
I've done that, at the range, absolutely.
Yeah, where you sit there and it goes back and forth, and you got to time it right, get the ball off the.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, that'll suck a few brain cells out of your head doing that for about 4 or 5 hours a day.
Well, I didn't have the patience to sit there too long. I think I did it as a kid, and I probably lasted about 10 minutes. So
yeah,
but I've done it.
It's an off. That is probably the worst job I think I've ever had in my life, because that is just a brain suck of a job. Well, we got to move on from these driving range stories, but man, I would love to talk again about that. But I want to ask you. So we have Florida in common. I know you just came back, but you played collegiately 1 year at West Florida up in Pensacola. I bet you've never heard many people ask you about any exploits you might have had in Navarre Beach, but I could share some Navarre Beach stories with you.
Nice.
I know. So, But here's my question. You played 1 year there. You went back to North Carolina. You played at High Point. You played the mini tours for a little bit. You got your amateur status back. I bet there are hundreds of guys that have a similar story. Played a little bit at college at maybe a school not many people knew about, tried the mini tours, banged it around for a little while. But then you get your status back and accomplish all these great things like winning the U.S. Mid-Am and qualifying for U.S. Open. When did things actually start clicking for you after you got your status back? Because your story is pretty common. Like I said, it's a couple of mini tours and things like that.
Yeah.
When did things click?
It really what happened was, just to kind of back up for a really quick second into this. So I was playing mini tour golf and I was doing okay. I was holding my own and my money was fine. I wasn't going through the money. I wasn't making money, but I wasn't losing money. I was just kind of hanging around and I was sustaining but I wasn't having any fun. Like golf wasn't as fun as I knew it could be and as it used to be to me, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
So and the traveling and I don't mind traveling, but when it's like 5-6 weeks in a row and you come home and you don't even really know your friends anymore, and it's just that just the whole thing together but wasn't any fun. So I got my AM status back and started to play in a couple of amateur events and it became fun again. And really just the love for the game was reignited and that's really all it took, honestly. And then going through a little bit of had a couple of close calls and kind of relearned what I already knew as far as what we talked about earlier with the emotions and how to win and how to compete and what's good and what's not and this and that and the other it took one little win to get me off and running and then I just kept progressing every year since. So it's really just finding that love for the game again, if you will.
The other thing I wanted to talk about is you've been so successful with this elite amateur events, like the Thomas and the Crump and the Coleman. And, these are events that probably just about every single amateur that's listening to this podcast or every amateur in all corners, they're probably not going to be able to play in these events. So instead of talking about some of these elite events that maybe people aren't as connected to, what's your normal weekend game like? What are some of the local, maybe hit and giggle events that you play in that everyone listening can kind of relate to?
I tell you what, my favorite. That's a great question. So I don't play much on the weekends. I'm helping coach his basketball team and he's into golf too. So I'm kind of hanging out with the family on the weekends. But my favorite thing are these charity events. You get your buddies together, get a cooler of beer and a Bluetooth radio thing and go out there and blare music, drink beer, and just talk trash to everyone. And I'm telling you right now, that is the most fun ever. I just love that. And people call me, I don't even know. And I'm just like, absolutely, I'm coming. Let's play. I love it. I'm absolutely in love with doing those things and going out there and doing that. And to me, that's where pace of play doesn't matter because we could be out there for 8 hours and I'm
Sure.
okay with in that environment.
So let me just make sure I understand what you just did here on this podcast. A U.S. mid-amateur champion, Walker Cupper, just basically said that if you have beer, you'll travel and you'll be a scramble partner. Got it. Okay.
Amen. You can put me down.
All right. Perfect. I'm going to get you a whole schedule of things you're coming down to Florida for. So don't you worry. Wow. Didn't expect that answer. So, all right, well then let me ask you this question. You've played all these great courses. You've been to Pine Valley, you've been to Seminole, you've been to LACC, and obviously Augusta National has been crossed off your list because you got to play the 2015 Masters due to your 2014 U.S. Mid-Champ championship. So what's on your bucket list now? Like, what courses do you want to check out? What would, like, is there a dream buddy golf trip that you want to go on?
You know, that's another great question. So before last year, Pebble Beach was like the one spot that I had not been. I always wanted to go to, and then they had the U.S. Amateur there, so I got to play that, which was incredible. And then now I'm thinking about these places, and you know, Bandon seems like a really cool place. So but I'm getting to go next month for the 4-ball there.
Yeah.
So really everything in the United States that's on my list will be checked after next month.
Wow.
The only thing that I'm wanting to do is get a big group and go over to Scotland and play some of the open courses.
That is, I've been able to do that, and that is, it's quite an experience.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to talk about that one time. I'll tell you, I don't know. It just seems like it'd be so neat to get a big group, hang out, play golf, drink some beers in the evening, tell some stories, and then do it again every day. And it just seems really, really cool.
Yeah. And one other place you should check out is Cabot up in Nova Scotia.
Oh, really?
Cabot is worth it because it's, super easy to get to, and also there's no time zone change like you're going to deal with Bandon, but you just basically shoot up the East Coast, and it's incredible too. So it's a core Crenshaw. It's kind of like the Bandon of the East, so to speak.
That's fairly new, right?
Yeah, and I was there last year, and it's incredible.
Nice. I'll have to look at that one. Yeah, Nova Scotia is a beautiful place, from what I understand.
Yep, and you could just shoot up, and that was like the running joke. It's like a 3-hour drive from Halifax to Cabot to up to Inverness, and that was the running joke. I'm like, it's not hard to get to. And my buddies are like, dude, it's 3 hours in a car. I'm like, yeah, that's nothing. Don't worry about that. So, 3 hours in a car is nothing. But you've been over to the UK to play. So like I said, you're U.S. Mid-Am champion. Got you into the 2015 Masters, and would have to think that really led to you being selected for the Walker Cup team. You partnered with Mike McCoy, who was a previous guest here at the Back of the Range. You got to give me an Uncle Mike story.
Uncle Mike, I'll tell you what, I love the guy. I really do. We call him the mayor, by the way. So
okay.
we're down in South America. In 2015, is in January of 2015, and we're both trying to make the Walker Cup team. The USGA sends me and him to represent the United States, and also sends 2 girls. They have a women's division too,
yep.
And whatever. So we're down there playing in Peru, and Mike likes to enjoy a cigar.
Yes, he does.
Yeah, and the guy is all time. He's so good, and everywhere you go, Mike walks around. He's got the cigar in his mouth, and if you didn't know any better, you'd think he's running the whole place. It didn't matter where you were, if you were at a restaurant, a golf course, a shop. He just walks around with that cigar, and he just looks like he's in charge of everything. So we call him the mayor, and there couldn't be a more classy guy than him. He would rather talk about everyone else than himself, and he'll put you before him. He's just an all-time great guy. From the Walker Cup, they wouldn't let him smoke cigars, though.
Oh, well, now I know why we lost.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm thinking that was definitely not a positive effect, but they just, for whatever reason, recommended strongly that he did not smoke cigars because it was, I guess, maybe a bad look or something, which everybody kind of disagreed with. But Mike being Mike, he just went, he just didn't want to ruffle any feathers. He went along with the flow, and that was it. But Mike, sort of almost like a video game character, right? With that cigar walking around.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I love the guy. I just saw him last week, spent some time with him. So, yeah, the mayor is one of my favorite.
Yeah. So you mentioned, obviously Walker Cup, I looked at the last 30 years since about 1989. It's been actually very, very close. Normally we win on our soil. They win on their soil. I think both teams had a couple runs of 2 or 3 wins in a row. It seems like it's completely different than the Ryder Cup and the President's Cup, because those are kind of dominated, for lack of better term, by one side. But what is it about the Walker Cup that kind of makes it so competitive, for where both teams, it seems like it's kind of a coin flip every year?
I think the level of play on the GB&I side has come along so much.
Okay.
I think Tiger Woods shooting into the game like he did really kind of golf all over the world really got way more popular, and I think they have in the early years the Walker Cup was dominated by the United States, and when Tiger came along, I just believe that golf everywhere is much more prominent than it used to be. and their level of play over there is really good. And what I'm noticing is we pretty much lose when we go over there, and they pretty much lose when they come over here.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much it. And it's going to be competitive for a long time. I mean, there's some great players everywhere, man. No matter, I went to Japan, for example, for the Japan Amateur in 2015, and I didn't know what to expect. And I got to tell you, I mean, all of those guys can play. Every one of them. They just don't get out and show it much.
Right.
They don't get the opportunities. So golf everywhere is, man, there's some great golfers. Good gracious.
I'm not going to ask you about the frequency of Cracker Barrels in Japan. I'm just going to go ahead and assume that you found something else to kind of get by on. But
I didn't find much.
Yeah, I was going to say, I was like that. I don't know if Scott Harvey's going to enjoy the delicacies out in Japan. But what? So let me ask you a tough one. I'm going to tread lightly here, but which one was tougher, losing 2016 U.S. Mid-Am to Hagestad, or not getting on that 2017 Walker Cup team?
You know, much tougher not making the team for a lot of reasons. I'm actually okay with the 2016, the way the Mid-Am finals went, because I'm always okay with losing like that. If someone gets hot and beats me, then that's fine. I'm perfectly okay with it. That's just going to happen. It's happened before, and it'll happen again. When I give it away, you know, if I start making doubles and bogeys and triples and whatever and give something away, that's devastating.
Yeah. And
that didn't happen. So I'm perfectly good with that. Now, with the Walker Cup team, the way that whole thing went down, it's unfortunate. The way it happened, I've moved on. I'm definitely a look forward, not backward kind of person. So
sure.
I've moved on for sure. But I mean, that was tough.
And it's kind of unfortunate, because I know that a lot goes into putting yourself in a spot where you can be chosen to be on that team. You know, you have, mid-ams have less opportunities to get points and to get noticed, as opposed to a college player where that has all these different amateurs. And plus you got to work for a living. You got to do, you have family, you have all these commitments.
That's right.
How did you schedule yourself to put yourself in the best spot to get points to get on that team? And not just for that year, but in other years. Like, how do you make a schedule? You know,
that's a great question. So I sat down and talked to my wife, Kim, and just said, you know, I want to make a run at the team again. You know, this is what I'm thinking about playing in. Are you okay with this? And she's great. She's okay with anything. And you know, there's some events that everybody knows are bigger than others, and this, that, and the other. But, you know, as far as scheduling is concerned, you know, you look at the Porter Cup, and you know, you got your big Mid-Am events that you want to play in. I was going to do the Northeast, but it qualified for the U.S. Open instead. And you know, you just set your schedule at what you can, especially as a Mid-Am. You can't do everything, right? So you pick and choose the ones that are important to you, and you just go with it.
Well, I mean, you picked the right ones. I'm looking at I'm sure I'm going to miss something, but 2017, you qualified to play the U.S. Open. You win the Coleman, medalist at the Crump. You win the Thomas, which is held at the same course that the Walker Cup was played at, the L.A. The L.A. Country Club. But
yep.
Yeah, I guess things happen, right?
Yeah, it is what it is. But you know, it's over, and you know, and I've had some calls after winning the Coleman this week, being a Walker Cup year, and trying to get me to make another push. But we have a 6-month-old baby at home, and I'm not willing to run the gauntlet, so to speak, and kind of sacrifice time away from the family that much. I mean, I'm going to travel and play a little bit, but I'm not going to.
Yeah. Well, then there's the 2021 Walker Cup, which is at Seminole.
That's right.
So,
that's right.
So, and it's not like, you know, there have been, I mean, McCoy was on the team in 2015. I believe he was about 52, 53 years old. So it's not uncommon. It can happen again. So
it can happen.
So, Scott, let's pivot actually away from Walker Cup. Let's pivot a bit to the PGA Tour. Your home course, Sedgefield Country Club. I wanted to ask you this one. You know, when there is an odd number of players that make the cut at the Masters, they do lean on Jeff Knox to be the unofficial marker, and that guy is just an absolute legend there at Augusta National. I'm sure you saw him, I believe, at the Coleman this past weekend.
Yeah.
Have you had any experience of pros reaching out to you for a little bit of advice at Sedgefield to get prepared for the Wyndham?
I have. I have. So I've played in the Pro-Am a couple different times, and gotten a few questions from those guys. I've had guys that I've played, younger PGA pros that I played amateur golf with. That when they're coming to play, they'll reach out and ask me some things and whatever. And it's good. But the reality is they know what they're doing, and
Yeah.
it's not, there's really no secret, right? Just keep it below the hole and keep it in bounds, right? It's just golf, and they know it as good as anyone. So.
And when you do see them at the Pro-Am, or you see them, does that kind of give you another maybe the thought and the confidence knowing that you made the right decision to regain your amateur status back? I mean, you mentioned the lack of fun. Do they look like they're having all the fun in the world, or is it just really hits you like, wow, these guys are at a job right now?
At that level, on the PGA Tour, I think they're having fun, and they're doing fine. But for me, a big validation moment came as after I got my amateur status back. I got in a playoff at the U.S. Open qualifier, a local qualifier. This is several years ago. And I got in a playoff with some mini tour guys. There was about 6 of us in a playoff for a couple spots. And they wouldn't even I wouldn't introduce myself. They wouldn't even speak. And it was I just really showed me how miserable they are. And some of them are staying in their cars and, eating sandwiches out of paper bags. And and look, I mean, you do what you got to do, and I'm not downing anyone, but if you're that miserable, it's just not worth it.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Well, I know you gotta jump real quick, so I just want to finish off with one question here. You're, as I said, you're highly accomplished amateur. Very tough to get to the level that you're at. Most people never get there. I think a lot of people would be thrilled to break 80 every once in a while. Kind of put your amateur golf hat on. What would you like to see? What do you think are good things about amateur golf right now? Or what do you think could be changed in amateur golf to grow the game and have it reach more and more people? What could be more fun about golf?
That's a good question. So I think the biggest problem in golf is I think it's twofold. I think it's the time and the expense of it. Okay. So I think if there is a way to cut down on the expense of golf, because it's a very expensive habit.
Yeah.
Or hobby, I should say. It's a very expensive hobby, and that would in itself would bring a lot more people into the game. But there are programs, First Tee, Junior League, whatever, that do help. I think pace of play is an issue to help. They could let people, get out of work and go zip around 9 holes or a quick 18 or, on the weekends, and still have the day to spend with their families. And, those things could really help the game a lot. I think there needs to be more competitions for women in the mid amateur game, because, that's a big void right there. There's just really nothing for them to play for. Now they got this Augusta National Women's Amateur, which is phenomenal. And just need more things like that for them to play for after college. Because, what do they do after college? They either turn pro and try to play, or they just quit.
Yeah. No, it's sad. No, you're absolutely right. It's one thing I talked to Shannon Johnson about. She's the U.S. Women's Mid-Am champ, and I was actually a little bit bummed that she didn't get an invite to the Augusta Women's Amateur. So,
oh wow, I didn't know she didn't.
Yeah,
that is sad.
Yeah,
that is sad.
Well, Scott, you've been great. I really do appreciate the time. Before I let you go, I really didn't ask you too many questions about your experience playing in the Masters in 2015. I'm sure you've gotten a lot of questions about the course and Magnolia Lane, but I wanted to hit on your experience at the Crow's Nest, the amateur experience at the Masters. You can hear stories about the Champions Dinner, whether it's stories about, Sam Snead's raunchy jokes and then Lord Byron Nelson just hiding under the table asking him to please stop. But like, what can you share about the amateur dinner and the amateur experience that you had when you played the Masters in 2015?
It was really cool. The amateur dinner, I don't really have any stories about that. Everybody, they went through every amateur that was there.
Right.
and showed a video, and you had to stand up and talk and a little bit, which was great. But and I stayed in the crow's nest only one night because I didn't want to be secluded from my friends and family that came down with me.
Sure.
But I did stay there with Corey Connors, was one of the guys there, and we're sitting around with the guys, and it's dark outside, it's real quiet, it's an odd feeling almost, because it's you're out there with thousands of people all day, and you're you're sitting in there, and all of a sudden nothing's going on, you're totally secluded.
Yeah.
And everybody's like, well, what do we do? And I said, well, hell, I know what to do. I go downstairs and I told one of the first person I could find to give us a 12-pack of Coors Light.
You did not do that.
I did, and they said absolutely, be right back. And they brought us a 12-pack of Coors Light, and we sit up there in the crow's nest and drank a few beers and told stories for a couple hours.
That's so good. That's so
Yeah.
good. And this is Corey Connors, who literally just, I mean, how crazy is, I think I mentioned to someone else, I said, people are talking about Tiger's victory at the Masters, which is just so incredible, but and how it's going to kind of re-energize the game. But I actually think what Corey Connors did with basically Mondaying into the Texas Open, the Valero Texas Open.
Yes.
So he Mondays
Yes.
into the Texas Open and then wins it, and now he's at the Masters. I actually think that is going to have more impact on every single grinder out there that's on the mini tours or on the Latin America tour or Mackenzie. I mean, that's just incredible.
It is. That is, I mean, Monday qualifying in itself is next to impossible, right?
Sure.
And then combine that with winning. I mean, that's crazy.
Yeah. He plays in the Masters and makes the cut and actually has a really good week.
Yes. I was texting with him a little bit during that week, and I said, how does it feel to be playing as a pro? I mean, you're not getting free beer in the crow's nest.
What did he say?
He just laughed, just to LOL. He was
yeah.
doing his own thing or whatever.
Sure.
So, but he's a great guy.
Yeah.
Great guy.
Well, Scott, listen, I really appreciate this. This has been a lot of fun. I feel we could probably do about 2, 3, 4 more episodes with you with all your stories, but I'm really glad you joined us today, and hopefully we'll do it again soon. So thanks for being here at the Back of the Range.
Absolutely, Ben. I really appreciate you having me on, and we'll look forward to talking to you soon.
And there you have it. Thanks so much to Scott Harvey for joining us this week here at the Back of the Range. I think we need to have him on again very, very soon. Don't forget, follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. All the information you need about this podcast. Go to thebackoftherange.com, and we'll see you again next time here at the Back of the Range.